So it's 4, we can officially begin. So this is our 7th episode of Collection Spotlight. And we're very deeply honored to have Jhon Goes In Center today. He's going to discuss Plains Personal Adornment in Metal. This is a co-production of First American Art Magazine. I'm America Meredith here in Norman, Oklahoma, member of the Cherokee Nation, largest tribe in the country. But yeah, and we're a quarterly print and digital magazine. So if you need some reading material or you want to give someone a gift to kind of get them some intellectual stimulation during quarantine time, you know, definitely hit our website. And we're so happy to partner with the Center for the Arts. So Bess Murphy is actually in Santa Fe, and she can tell you about the Co.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm the curator at the Center for the Arts in Santa Fe. And we're a small arts organization centered in Santa Fe, and we're dedicated to connection and learning through our pretty large collection of Indigenous arts. And we are so very happy to be able to be working with America and First American Art and all of our incredible guest artists. We have a hands-on interactive collection. So for us, this is a really beautiful way to bridge the gap right now between being able to work with our public hands-on with our collection and artists and community members. So thank you all for joining us today. And I think America has a little bio information for Jhon, and we'll go from there.
And also, we have the chat, so feel free to comment. And also, do ask questions towards the end. We'll open everyone's mics up, and yeah, you can have at it. You can talk directly. Yay, all right. We have all sorts of people trickling in. But Jhon Goes In Center, I first heard about him about power flushes, because he was pointing out the meaning of power flushes is they're essentially GPS. I'm like, this guy's a genius.
Okay, well, we should be done then.
Wait.
So we'll end up with screens on the windows, Matt?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, someone needs to mute. Who? I'm muting people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a mute. Sorry about that, I apologize. But Jhon Goes In Center is a Oglala Lakota from Rapid City and Pine Ridge Reservation. He's a Lakota metalsmith. He's also a carver, a dancer, a regalia maker, and a cultural artist working in many different materials and methods. He's currently based in Rapid City, South Dakota. He earned his museum studies degree from University of Colorado. He studied metal engraving from a nationally renowned firearms engraver. So you can talk more about what you're going to do with firearms engraving. And he uses the term personal adornment. He can explain that. And we're going to look at 19th century and current artwork today from the northern and southern plains. So take it away, Jhon. Thank you so much for being here on your birthday.
Oh, yeah, it is. Thank you. Well, first of all, you know, I am very honored that somehow I got found.
Yay.
And give my gratitude to the Ralph T. Coe Center and also First American Art Magazine for what they're doing. You know, all seems like magic, this kind of technology. We're from all over different parts of the country, but here we are gathered to sort of like learn more. And me, I've learned a lot in my whole lifetime of working. I don't really like to call myself an artist, but I'm a maker, I guess. I make things. But today we're going to talk about Plains Indian jewelry. I like to call it the art of personal adornment, because all these things were actually part of a expression of identity and I guess, you know, persona, you could say, and culture. But as a Plains Indian, you know, I do know that it was very important for when I see how our ancestors used to adorn themselves. We were nomadic in the sense that we followed the buffalo. That was our lifestyle. We weren't really, I guess you say, nomadic, wandering around aimlessly and lucking out and finding herds of buffalo. But we followed them. We had a sense of purpose and we followed them. But with that, we never had permanent dwellings. So everything that we had, we wore, or we put our designs on our clothing, our accoutrements, our housing, our teepees. You know, everything was decorated in a sense. It was embellished. So I always knew that somehow this whole expression was living in beauty. That's really how I seen a lot of this adornment that Native people were making. And of course, it has its roots in history. I call it a temporal geographic timeline of Native people in North America. So adornment in its metal form came from traders. So we're looking at the northeast of America, all the way down to the southern, southeastern when the Spanish came, and also from the north and was the French and British, where they were into the fur trading business, and of course the Spanish again down there in the southwest. They all had metals, and they somehow were eager to trade with Native people, so they brought things to wear, also brought tools and the material of metal. So Native people, they adapted pretty quickly to metal, and they actually, from the adornment that they were traded for, they also started making their own. So there's an evolution that's been happening since the coming of Europeans to America. So I just want to kind of clarify that we just didn't have metal, that we just, well, we have done things in copper, but really when it comes to silver and gold and such like that, it was all influenced by the Europeans. But I'm going to be talking about artifacts that are made out of a material called German silver. It doesn't have any silver content to it, but it's a metal that it's an alloy. I'd say it was invented in the 1840s in Germany. It was a base metal. We call that base metal today. It was an alloy of copper, zinc, and nickel, and very durable. In fact, it was probably created for the cutlery industry, whereas a base metal where they plated base metal, so that's why we get silverware, so we have to just kind of understand that it doesn't really have any precious metal content to it. But to me, it has a strong intrinsic value because of its use and its design. A lot of these designs are somewhat very cultural, deep, in the sense that it does embody some spirituality and such, but it also is an expressive adornment piece that connects them to their world, their geography. So it's really an expression of their worldview, I would say, in a sense. So let's get started, because there are some pieces that I think are very influential in helping us understand what I just mentioned about this personal adornment from Plains Indians. And
Wonderful.
what do we have to look at? Because I think that's going to be our
should we start, John, with this pair of trailer earrings? And I think America can spotlight this. So, John, do you want to introduce them? Do you want me to introduce them?
Yes. Okay, so these are created by a Pawnee silversmith that I was so inspired by. His name was Julius Caesar, and I think he was born in the 1930s or so, but anyway, he's not with us anymore. But he's very influential and well known in the Southern Plains in Oklahoma in particular, and that's German silver. And you look at those designs, they're very unique in a sense, but even the format that they're in, these are earrings. And you can see that a woman may have wore them. And
I'll show you how long they are.
And when I see pieces like that they articulate, they move, they're pretty special, but they're also unique to, I guess you could say, high fashions on the plains. That's pretty fashionable to have something like that. But because they move, you could imagine them being worn at a dance. And so when I see these things that move like that, they have spirit to me, because they're moving, they're kinetic in a sense. And if we really understand Native culture, dancing is one of our forms of joy, but also dancing is a form of prayer. So anything that kind of moves and has something associated with dancing, whether it be ceremonial or in joy, it has a spirit that really embodies the humanness that we have, in creating such things. But Julius Caesar has been my inspiration. And in fact, as a young artist back in the early 70s, I seen his pieces, and that's what really kind of changed a direction for me and what I thought I wanted to do. If you can understand, back in 1974, Native people had the Religious Freedom Act, which guaranteed them religious freedom. So to me, I was right at that time when there was a renaissance starting to happen of Native expression, because all of a sudden we were free to do our ceremonies, and and there's been, along with the civil rights movement and all that, there was a sense of a identity that we were coming out with. So myself as a young artist, I was really excited about my Indianness. It was okay to be an Indian then. Prior to that, we were somewhat suppressed by government policies of assimilation. So, but anyway, this really kind of reinforces our identity when we're free to do things like this. But when I seen Julius's work, it really spoke to me, as far as, because growing up and being raised by my grandmother, she wore jewelry, and that always amazed me. Although we never knew we were in deep poverty, we still adorned ourselves in certain ways, that really we had a sense of pride and identity, so all this stuff is amalgamating as far as what we do as Native people today, is to really express our joy, our connection to our environment, and some kind of personal wealth we have, like that, in jewelry or adornment. Yeah. So pieces like that, when I seen what Julius was doing, I said, wow, that's powerful. That's really powerful. And of course, since then, I've been studying and watching and observing and asking, and anything I can find about personal adornment. I'm helping myself understand what it is that I'm doing that really kind of stays in alignment with what I call the indigenous worldview. Yeah, so that piece like that was really inspiring.
Should we look at this pendant
Yeah,
now?
let's look at this pendant. This too is another piece of Julius was maybe want to raise that up a little bit. Yeah.
There we go.
And there again, you can see articulation and movement of those fringes. But then also there's imagery on there. Of course, there's a deer. And as I kind of understood how this came about, it was created for somebody that was in the deer clan. And there again, as a Pawnee, I understand that star design that's really kind of synonymous with the Pawnees. There again, the circle, there's all kinds of inspirational design into it, the symmetry of it all, and the circle with all those little designs around there. I would venture there'd even be stars. I have a good Pawnee friend that kind of helps me understand their worldview and how star knowledge really plays an important part in their culture, where he said, we have these stars, 4 stars that define our Aboriginal territory. Whenever we see these stars on the four directions on the horizon, we know that's our homeland. So there again, I see all that kind of imagery, and it's expressed in such pieces like that, and then, but the techniques for making something like that are very basic to metalwork. So you can see some basic soldering of the deer image onto the metal plate and doming it a little bit to bring it out in a dimension like that. And what I know about Julius, he made his own stamps. So those stamps are only known to him because he created those stamps, and he stamped them along the edges, and he defined the circle in itself again. And there again, cutting out the fringes and poking holes in the metal, punching in, and folding the metal and letting it dangle like that. It's really expressive as far as its movement. You can see his maker mark in the back. It's a teepee with a C. Yeah, that's Julius Caesar. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there again, that's, to me, just simple as it may seem, it's really inspirational. And I will have to say that this type of silverwork was, if you can understand, kind of predates a lot of the things that we see in the Southwest as what we call Indian jewelry, which is silver and turquoise, that to me seems to be like an industry because it's overwhelmed. It's overwhelming. Anytime you go to a tourist shop, you see silver and turquoise, but you never see this kind of work because it's not commercially, and it's not for commercial purposes. It's for the culture, you know. So this would really makes this kind of jewelry very special. Yeah, you can find a lot of it in Oklahoma. That's Indian territory where a lot of tribes were displaced and were sent to there. But so that kind of defines a geographic area where you can find this type of jewelry. And as it's evolved, it's spread up into the northern plains. So in a little bit, we'll be looking at some northern plains expressions of German silver jewelry.
We pull up some of these other Julius earrings that we have.
Okay.
Few more. Let's see.
Like I said, he really impressed me, inspired me, and even, you know, for what he's done, I want to give all the accolades to him as far as the work he's done, and I know it's inspired many of us. Okay. Now these to me are very exceptional. They're very what I call Pawnee, in a sense of the crescent moon, and you see those zigzag marks. I would recognize that even from my own culture, that we use that kind of imagery to talk about the power of creation. And you can see as a hunting culture, those are reminiscent of arrows. And arrows were instrumental in our survival for hunting buffalo. So it's an arrowhead with lightning on it. And lightning's it's a good symbol of creation itself because it brings water. And of course, we see the cosmos and the crescent moon. We see the imagery of the heart. I mean, just all kinds of, you know, inspirational images that you can see. Yeah, so that's what I see in pieces like that. And they're very expressive of the Pawnee again, of the Plains Indian, you know. So you see many forms. You see a diamond, an arrowhead, a crescent moon, and that heart just kind of tops it all. You know, that's a universal image that I think we all can relate to, a sense of affection and belonging. Yeah, and there again, they articulate, they move. Really instrumental, I would say. When somebody's dancing, you can see them dancing too. So when I see these things, they really do have spirit. Yeah.
And we've got one more pair here.
Okay.
Julius's earrings.
Well, I kind of, maybe I'll be apologetic to the way I speak about this, but it really does get me very excited. You know, when I see this kind of work, you know, it speaks to me. That's the way it, and maybe I listen in a different way, but it really, I get excited.
I don't think you need to apologize for that, John. I think we appreciate it.
Yeah. But you know, when I see this, I see some interesting techniques, but also the imagery, and I always bring the fact out that they move, they have spirit, you know. So there again, although this is not precious metal, the intrinsic value has to do with its presentation, its use, and but I know the tools that he did, and that's the thing that impresses me most is he had the rudimentary principles of metalwork by making his own tools, his stamps. He didn't so much use a jeweler saw, but he used like tin snips to cut all this, and a punch to put holes in, stamps to define edges. And another advanced technique is the repoussé, where he made a ball. He punched out the ball and soldered them onto. So he domed it out and soldered it onto the. And I think that's very reminiscent of a scissor tail. When I see that kind of work, and I know it comes from Oklahoma, I know the scissor tail swallow down there is very inspirational in a lot of artwork. So that's the way I connect to a lot of these things like that. Like I said, they're geographical. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you define repoussé for us?
Oh, reposer, it's a French word
Yeah.
for a French word for it's doming out, is pushing out the metal into a form. Yeah, it's just a technique of forming metal. So you can see this metal when you get a round steel ball and you punch it from behind, it domes it out, you know. So that's, and then when you see silver vessels, that's the ultimate in repose is hammering out things to make them round, you know.
How difficult is it to do repose on nickel silver, on German silver?
Yeah, well, it's very difficult because, like I said, it's a very hard. It's a alloy of copper, zinc, and nickel.
Right.
And you take a nickel, a coin, and look at it, and and you compare that to a silver dime, and you can see, you know, the dime can be scratched. It's very soft because it's silver, but then a nickel, and you try push it and bending it, it's really tough. So.
Hmm.
So you can see that nickel is a very sturdy. It takes a high polish, and it'll keep that polish, but over time it develops a nice warm patina to it.
Yeah.
Silver scratches easy, you know that. So anyway, but German silver, nickel silver, it's very durable,
Yeah.
very hard, and so all this jewelry we're looking at is you can only, there's a limit to just how much you can really do with it, because it's a tough material.
Yeah.
You can stamp on it, but that's about it. You can cut it out in any shape, and just limited form of repose you can do it.
Right. And you can't cast it, right? Which I think is really interesting. You can't melt it down and
You
do,
can't melt it down and cast it.
right. So
Yeah.
you can't do multiples. So every single piece.
No, and I don't even know of anybody that recycles it. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting
Ah,
thought about what I do with my scraps, and I really wondered about what other metal workers do with their scrap, but I save it. I do. I really save it. Everything I do, I save, and I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. But when I do get enough of it, I take it out and I bury it in the earth, and I give it back to the earth. You know, because these are all earth-born materials. So it's just something that I'm really aware of when there's a train in the background.
I
So,
know. That's a pretty good speaker you got.
yeah, my studio is right by the railroad tracks.
Are they on time today?
Basically, I'm on the other side of the tracks. Yeah, but yeah, that just brings up thoughts about how I work, and I think maybe I would know that Julius did such things like that, saving the scrap and returning it to the earth, because it is an earth-born material. Yeah.
So next, I think we have a piece by Bruce Caesar.
Yay.
So
Ooh, I love that.
I know his Julius
Okay.
son.
So that's Julius's son. So what I would call this continuum of what Julius was doing, his son just takes it to another level. So the time period I mentioned about Julius being born in the what I call sort of the post-reservation period, he developed a type of jewelry very famous for it, but his son takes it to another level. And you can see elements of the culture in Oklahoma when the Native American church was starting. So that's a cormorant, a water bird on there. So that becomes a prominent spiritual expression that's been evolving since the early reservation days in Oklahoma and Indian territory. So you can see the refinement of the next generation of Caesar working, making stamps as well that are more intricate and doing cutouts like that. You're seeing a different kind of a design of the cormorant from the side. And he's put little combs on the side there. So when you wear this crown, it kind of fits into the combed hair. You know, so it's a really well designed piece but what I can say about it, it's modern. Fits into the culture of the powwow, where all of a sudden young ladies want to become powwow princesses. So they start wearing these kind of things. So in his father's day, they never had these kind of things, but this is an expression that responds to the evolution of our culture, that we become, very, today you'll understand all these big powwows that are across the United States. These are an expression of your powwow, having somebody that can be a signature person for promoting your powwow by having one of these crowns, So it's just part of this evolution, but it's still metalwork, German silverwork. There again, I emphasize the intrinsic value of it culturally and for design-wise, and how it fits into the culture in itself. Yeah, very unique. I mean, I've made a few myself, which I thought was kind of silly, but I think, well, that's cool. It's really funny. But mine, I featured a buffalo on the side, and the teepee in the middle, and it made that crown, But these are all cultural expressions of the awareness and spirituality in Oklahoma with the Native American church, which is the cormorant, the water bird.
Could you talk briefly about how certain areas are darker and how that effect is achieved?
Well, okay, so he's brought the technique of this to another level by texturing the metal.
Oh,
You can
cool.
get that by using an engraver, by actually, stippling the metal. I've done that myself because you're trying to create contrast, and that's what I do. You're doing all these different techniques of dimension to the metal, and then you can texture it. And that's one thing right now. We never get into the acids yet, but there's ways of coloring some of that. And I've been experimenting. Haven't really fully brought it out to the public yet, but I'm looking at different ways of bringing in highlighting and contrasting this one-dimensional metal. Sterling silver, you can use liver of sulfur to get the darkness and shades and stuff like that. But that's what he's done, is stippled it. So what we just seen is something from his father to what the high level of techniques that his son has. And I think his son has been accoladed by the NEA for his work and contributions. Yeah, that's that piece right there really speaks of this form of personal adornment, bringing it to that level, I would say, Yeah, and it is distinguishable to the southern plains in Oklahoma.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let's keep on going because I do want to make sure and have time to look at your pieces too, John.
Yeah.
So
Oh, wow.
maybe I'll just show some of these other earrings that we have real quick. We've got these Homer mouth pieces. These are all from probably around the same time. They're all mostly from the 70s, except
Yeah,
for the earlier Julius pieces.
that's when they're collected. These are by an Arapaho man. I've seen some of his work too, and there again, you can see that the nickel silver, the German silver, has been domed, and that's kind of like a form of repose. Just getting a steel ball and pounding the back of it and forming it and doming it. And he's made these feathers, and they articulate. There again, I'm really impressed by this type of jewelry where they have fringes that move. And I know they look really well on dancers and such, they just got this spirit about them. And so these are, you would say, simple, but you can see how exquisite they really look when you're wearing them, And so I was saying not to just look good, but you feel good when you wear something like that that's moving. Yeah. Yeah, those are really nice. Yeah.
Right. And then we were gonna, I think our original thought was to go to some of this earlier work. So
Okay, let's look at that, because that
Yeah.
kind of sets a tone to understanding its evolution.
yeah. So these are actually on a little mount. I'm gonna probably keep them on the mount because that's a little bit easier for me to show them.
So these are Kaiwa. And just what I've been able to understand in my own studies about Plains Indian silverwork, these are almost what I call near spooky, but they're very expressive of a culture. These are pins. They're like brooch pins. You can see that we can stick them on a piece of cloth, and But what's so unique about this is that they're Kaiwa, and in one of my studies about Kaiwa, uh, they had a Sundance back in the 1870s, and it was called the Flat Metal Sundance. I really would like to know more about it, but to me, it speaks of the adaptation of this flat metal and how they brought it into their culture, and they're expressing their culture again with new material. So as a Buffalo culture out on the Great Plains, this design really speaks of that deep connection that they had in those days, you know, of the buffalo and how they depended on the buffalo. So these are very spiritual in a sense to an ancient spirit of buffalo. But when we see the peyote religion today, it still follows that same path of spirituality. So I would see this more as spiritual pieces rather than, you know, just like an adornment piece or like that. These are, maybe it fulfills both ornamentational and spiritual. But that is really powerful when I see those kind of designs.
Yeah.
And you can see there's some work on it. They domed them out. They cut them out. Wow, I know this is very powerful. In fact, you don't see anything like that today in the commercial market.
Mm-hmm.
You might see the silver and turquoise and all that, but it doesn't really speak of this connection to culture and a lifestyle that is so indigenous to living out on the Great Plains. And you see that worm patina on them? That's the age of them. It may have been shiny at one time, but just by handling, you get this warmth to them. That's the way I see that German silver. It evolves, and it has its own patina. It's a nice warm gray to it. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
John, when you say they're pins, do you have any sense of how they might be worn or who
You
they
see
might
that little latch in the middle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're like, so like, it's like a little pin that you put it on a piece of cloth, and then you can pierce that pin through that, and then you latch it to the little rotating place on top, and it acts as a pin, a brooch. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that even that is very innovative in a sense too.
Hmm.
If you understand, there's nothing really soldered on any of this
Yeah.
metal. I know Julius did get into soldering, but most of this is flat work, I call it.
I think I can show you
Yeah,
a
see?
bit of a better view.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yep. And
Yeah.
you'll see a lot of that kind of pins made in the woodland Indians up in the northeast, the Iroquois and such. That was a great. They were given brooches like that that came from England. So
Oh.
they've adapted a lot of these features into making their own kind of jewelry. So there's a lot of trading and a lot of innovation, and it's just a lot of creativity that comes with intertribal trade, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's this pair of earlier Kaiwa earrings as well.
Yeah, there again, when I see these kind of arrowhead designs, and then I see feathers, but these are unique too. They're also silver balls, or they were domed out. See how they're domed like that?
Mhm.
It's reminiscent of some of these things that they wore at the end of their. They used to make belts out of these conchos too. But they've taken a long strip of German silver, threaded it through a hole, and twisted it around and round and round. And not even that serves as a function, but it gives it a design. And those arrowheads and all that really are expressive of a hunting culture still. So that's where I see all these kind of expressions in Plains Indian silverwork.
What's the time period on these earrings?
I'd say these are probably from the late 1800s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I would say post-reservation days, just right. And before they became influenced by anything else, they were still expressing themselves as true Plains Indian people that still kept their culture alive. Yeah, those are really cool. I think
I love these. I love the wire wrapped on them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's a long strip of wire
Yeah.
that they flattened, and they actually kept wrapping it around and around and around. Yeah,
That detail's so great.
yeah.
I'm realizing I should have taken off my nail polish.
Oh, it's a nice blue background.
So I think if you're ready to keep on working with these pieces, we can go north now.
Yeah, let's go. Let's
All right.
go.
Oh,
All right.
And I'll say in the late 1800s, through intertribal commerce and trading and such, I know the Navajos were really famous for their chief blankets, and somehow they made it to the Great Plains, and those are really highly prized items. So I would know from the Southern Plains because the Cheyenne and the Lakota were really good allies, And I've been to Cheyenne country in the South, and I went to their Sundance, and they sang the melodies of Lakota Sundance songs, and they said, we got these from the Lakota, but they had their own Cheyenne words to them. So I know there's been all this interplay between different tribes, but so I would know that this type of jewelry, as it migrated, traveled up into the Northern Plains in the 1800s, and also influences of what the traders brought to the Lakota people during the fur trade days. I seen this chess piece that came from the Hudson Bay Company, and that was created in the 1850s. So there's all these things that really we've seen that people were wearing and were trading. All this was kind of coming to the Lakota people up north. So we started expressing our Lakota worldview with this kind of metal. So we started making horse head stalls. We started making belts, armbands, wrist cuffs, earrings, all these kind of things. And you see the historical photographs from the 1880s and all that. All these Lakota men were wearing big crosses and such. So it spread through the Northern Plains. And it's so unique to the Plains Indians. That's really something I know, that when I see these crosses the men wear, they weren't Christian crosses. They were presenting the fact of the universe of the four cardinal directions. These are power symbols. They were expressive and connecting themselves to this Great Plains. When you're standing in the Great Plains, that's what's really prominent, is where the sun rises and where it sets, where the winds come from, and the northern winds. All these kind of things are just kind of influential in expressing yourself creatively, So. But anyway, I know the Ralph T. Cole Center had some Lakota pieces. They're kind of contemporary. Yeah, let's say they're made by, one was by Mitchell Zephyr. Yeah. But they're very expressive of a culture we're still, like I mentioned, that Renaissance in the 1970s. All of a sudden, we're able to express ourselves spiritually. So this is a very highly spiritual expression of Lakota in the four cardinal directions, the four sacred colors, they call it. And you can see the eagle as the basis of that pendant. And Mitchell, he uses crushed stone with epoxy to fill voids and bring color to his. And I believe this is like sterling silver. You can see it's kind of highly polished. It's kind of a different kind of metal. And he did soldering. He did overlay on top of looks like brass. And those feathers there are brass. I can see that by the shininess of that.
we can see a little bit of his name. Eagle holding pipe to my
And
Quilla.
then eagle holding pipe, and then it says to my Cola Ted Co.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, that was an expressive piece that he made for the collector, Ted. So you'll see the number of feathers is 7. That's a sacred number to the Lakota people. The eagle is this emissary that carries our prayers. And he put some kind of connecting thing to the top of that pipe where you can see the smoke coming out of this pipe. And he's got a medicine wheel on the side there with a feather hanging from it. And that little pipe there, he's actually used catlinite, pipestone, bezel set. So there's some high techniques in there of overlay, soldering, stamping, crushed stone inlay, and some fine stamping to get the veins of the feathers there. Yeah, so that was be created in the time frame of probably the 1980s, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a piece that I know he's still making that kind of jewelry. In fact, he's taught many other younger people to keep that tradition alive of actually using metal to express our spirituality. Yeah. So his pieces are like that. Expressing the best of us as Lakota people, our spirituality.
And then the last one from the Co is this.
Yeah, and that's a piece made by Ree Haskell. He's from the Cheyenne River Reservation, a Lakota boy.
Mm-hmm.
This is very high techniques as well. You can see there's a bezel that's set all the way around it's like a sculpture of this buffalo hide. It's like carved out of bone. And he's actually put a bezel all the way around that, soldered a bezel so it kind of holds that sculpture within on a plate. And you can see that I think that bezel is made out of copper. It's got to be something very flexible. So it may be a fine gauge of copper that he's able to form and bend over on the edges of that sculpture. And there again, he's used some high techniques of soldering a wire on top of the feather and making it so he can dangle that off the horns. So feathers seem to be the delineating theme for the Northern Plains is really aspired to the eagle. The eagle, the buffalo, these are all things that really are prominent to our culture today, you know. So these are very Lakota as they're being expressed as modern jewelry. But me, I started in my silver work, I started from a continuum of the late 1800s when Native people, Lakotas, were still doing one-dimensional work on flat silver, on German silver. What I do know about some of these modern silver workers up here, they were influenced by the Southwest. So that's where they jumped right into doing inlay and bezel setting stones and such like that.
Will you show us some of your work now?
Sure, thank you. Okay, well,
Woohoo!
as I was introduced as an engraver, I like to really talk about my engraving because that's really been my passion. Although I've been inspired by the Southern Plains silverwork, you can see that they're very expressive on imagery and design that really kind of identified them in their culture, like Pawnee or Kaiwa or something like that. But I took that same notion, but I wanted to preserve Lakota designs, and you can't really do that through stamping. So this is where I really aspired to learn engraving. And where I went to school, my professor friend was a well-known firearms engraver. So he convinced me and helped me get started, and I did an apprenticeship with him. And he's a well-known firearms engraver. So I learned the higher techniques of engraving. So this is a piece that I finished not too long ago, but it's done on bronze, and it's a bracelet. I don't know, it's kind of too
Yeah, a lot
sharp.
of reflection.
Adjust the light a little bit. Yeah, so you,
Mhm.
yeah, so see that's all bright cut. My tools are very sharp, and you can see that's a geometric design, and that design actually sort of emulates what Lakota women used to use in painting on rawhide and decorating the inner panels of their teepees and such. So these are women point of view. The abstract geometric designs is what the women did. And maybe I'm more influenced by that because I was raised by my grandmother. I was raised by a lot of aunts, you know, so maybe I took a favor to understanding the women's point of view of how they created these designs. Lakota women did all the beadwork, the quill work, and they're all geometric, you know. So this is a higher form of what they used to do in painting on rye, but I just got the inspiration to find geometry in anything, clouds, landscapes, you know, so this really does, this design reflects in both dimensions, the upper and lower world, and the outline of the Black Hills as seen from the eastern side of and the western side of our reservation. So that's where I got this design from. And here's another signature design engraved. And if you can imagine a beadwork that used to go along the blanket strips of old-time blankets and buffalo robes, that was quilled or beadwork, and I actually preserved that design in metal. So that's all engraved. And it's probably what I call one of my signature designs, and that's where a lot of my designs come from. They're you know, from things that we did in our culture, but I just like transpose them into metal. And here's another modern piece that I just recently made, and I'm hoping you can see.
Hold it up just a little bit higher.
Okay, you see it? Okay.
Yeah.
Look at that design. You see the zigzag, and you see and those. To me, this is the thunder spirit, the Wakina. You can see the lightning, and you can see the rain coming down, and you can see the hailstones in the bottom through the other side of the lightning. So when I say even nature inspires me for my designs, that's something I did, and that's all engraved. And actually, that round circle there is something I actually seen. I was out on the prairie, and I just happened to see this boom of light when the lightning was all around, and there came out of this clouds a perfect circle of a lightning. So that's always the things that, you know, I pay attention to when I'm creating things, is what I see, what I feel, what I experience, you know. So, and I've done some historical pieces, and I'll show you this one. When I first started doing silver work, I was doing, these are things that are very reminiscent of the 1800s. You know, you see historical photos of Lakota men wearing German silver crosses. Well, I started out making them. And if you can see, there's a little engraving of a buffalo. So engraving's always been kind of one of my things I wanted to master. So you can see the stamping that I've done, reminiscent of the old time things like that. It's an early piece. And then I still make these, and you can see the engraving on this breastplate.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's an eagle with 4 stars, and you can see that design. You've seen that on that Pawnee earrings.
Mm-hmm.
Up in the northern plains, that's a lightning. That's the Wakina. That's the power of creation. So this is kind of still a piece that we wear today, although these was a style that I call high fashion in the plains. Plains Indians made these things, and they wore them back in the 1800s. Trade beads and being able to create from those resources something that's really defines them as Lakota people. And I've seen this same style on ledger drawings that were drawn in the late 1800s. So historical as it is, it still has relevance today. But I've taken the whole thing of expressing designs in fine engraving. So that's some of my engraving on that. Yeah. And I really was fortunate to have an association with agates now, because these agates I work with, they come from the Black Hills. They came up in the uplift of the Black Hills, and that's how ancient they are. So here's one of my pieces that, it's a recent piece I made. And it's a Fairburn agate, which came, and these agates are very rare. They're only unique to this area. So as simple as it is, it says a lot about the buffalo and the connection to this land. And this agate was formed in water. It was formed in the limestone, so it really expresses the connection to water. You can see how fluid it looks. But I gave the buffalo a face of an agate like that. The agate is talking to me. It says something about water, how water is precious. But the buffalo is also a symbol of the manifestation of the Creator and all the resources he gave the Lakota people through the buffalo, how we were able to sustain ourselves for food from the buffalo, shelter, clothing, and I would say even our social system, because the buffalo were a child-centric society. They took care of their children. They had a vanguard of taking care of their children. So the buffalo as an effigy is powerful to see that we as Lakota people relate to the buffalo as our brother. So we're related to it. So and that's the circle, the hoop of the sacred circle. To me, all that has come back to the Lakota people. The sacred hoop was broken at one time when the Wounded Knee Massacre happened. That just finally done us in. But now we're in this renaissance of culture. The buffalo is coming back. That they were almost extinct at one time. So I really pay an homage to the buffalo because it's just like us. It was almost it was almost became an extinct species, almost like us native people. But the buffalo, I know it means a lot to us because we're raising buffalo on our reservation. Now we're starting to eat more buffalo. We're starting to be healthy again. So all those kind of things really go into my jewelry. That's I can really say about that. So I'm very blessed to have learned techniques, and the impetus of what I do is involved all these different kind of thoughts. So, but I'm not really into the cliche of Indian jewelry. I just wanted to have purpose, have meaning, But most of my work is custom work. I don't really try to go out and sell my stuff commercially. It's that important to me. It's always been like that. Yeah, but hopefully we'll have some time for some questions.
Sure, yeah. I can allow people to unmute themselves if they want. So, okay, everyone, you can unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, or you can type it into the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but can I ask you? You recently did some work with Racing Magpie in Rapid City. So, do you want to talk about that? It was a virtual residency.
Yeah, they had a program called Virtual Residency when the COVID sort of really broke out and all this. Everybody's trying to. We were encouraged to not go anywhere. So a lot of these art shows are being canceled and stuff. But the Racing Magpie, this organization here that owns this building, they had a residence program and we could apply, and I was selected. But for that, I was obliged to do 3 presentations, which I do talk a lot about my origins of Plains Indian silverwork. And then I also talked about, and I did a presentation on a longer version of this talk about Plains Indian silverwork. And then also talking more about what I did just now synoptically about where my inspirations lie. So that's 3 presentations on Racing Magpie's website if you want to learn more than just this hour series we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nancy Brackett, she was greeting you. She met you before. So I'm going to ask to unmute you. Nancy, if you want to just say it, but she met you in Tucson?
Hi. I sat next to you a few days at the old Pueblo Lapidary Club, and you were so kind, and I loved your stones, and I have a Fairburn agate I made into a ring, and I wear it all the time, and I think of you, and I think of how just humble and magnificent your work is. And I was out there this year and I missed you. So hopefully COVID will go away and I will see you again.
I will be there again because my son is still there. I stopped by the rock club during the rock and gem and mineral show. I was looking for your car actually to see if you were there.
We were there for a little while, but we left early because we live in upstate New York and we wanted to get out of the COVID.
Well, Nancy, thank you. Yeah, well, I appreciate your comment. Yeah, we'll stay in touch. How's that?
That's good.
Yeah.
To next winter, may we all be okay and safe.
Yeah.
And Will Goes In Center says that Oliver says hello. Oh, long message. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, that's my.
What? Nanette.
Maybe
What
all his grandpa.
Nanette, why don't you just, I don't understand this. Why don't you speak directly? You can unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. Hello. Hi. Good day there. Hawaii. I was wondering, the Kaiwa brooches that were so interesting. They're very similar. The mechanism on the back is exactly like our Osage women's brooches.
Exactly. Yes.
Are they women's shirt brooches? Is that what they are?
I think they would be because they would fit on a blouse, just like the Osage and the Oneida. All those people from the woodlands wore brooches like that.
Okay, that makes sense. We have up to 3 depending upon who you are and who we are and where we are in our life cycle is. And you ask different people and everyone gives you a different answer, but personally I just wear one. But we wear up to 3, yes.
Yeah.
But
I've tried to. I've made some of them just because I wanted to, but I used more of a Lakota motif as far as buffalo hoof prints in a circle around like that. It's like that was my Lakota expression for a brooch.
that's beautiful. I'm glad that those were available to see. Ours are very a little bit different. They're geometric. Ours are more geometric.
Exactly. When I seen them, I said we got to talk about them. Like I said, they're so spiritual to me. They almost felt spooky.
I agree. They were they blew me away a little bit. They were very unique. So thank you for talking about those.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah.
I like how they, of course, look like hide painting, but they also look like petroglyphs. Like you can see that continuity over time.
Okay, so that's some of the principles of my engraving is that, we've done things like that. We've carved into stone with petroglyphs. We look at iconography on winter counts. We're very good at, in fact, I think we invented icons because that's the way we communicated, through imagery. We never had written language, so our language is oral, but then we had to express different. So I think that's the origins of true origins of art is actually a communication form, it's through imagery. So iconography, when I see a computer, you click on it. Same thing on a winter count hide. You click on that imagery and there's a story behind it,
Yeah, we're going back. Full circle.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a little bit of time. If people want to unmute themselves, we can all sing happy birthday.
Oh.
Bess, will you join me?
You have a birthday. Thank you.
I can't do it alone, Bess.
Okay. Happy birthday
to John. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday,
dear
John. I have no sense of timing. Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
Birthday, Dali.
Oh, yeah, it's an incredible birthday this year. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing it with us, John.
I really enjoyed it. I guess you could see my passion behind it. I mean,
And John Sumark is here.
Oh, Marcus. Oh, my.
Yes. And Jenny says hi.
Yeah. More. Yeah. Sue.
I'd like people to also know John is a man of many, many talents. He also is an expert in geographic information systems, so map making, digital map making, very involved in environmental issues and traditional knowledge. So he combines, he is a man of many facets.
Yeah. I'd have to say all that really does come into play with what I do, you know. Yeah, I've done many things. I don't, cause like I said, I never titled myself as an artist because so many other things I do, but it all amalgamates, I know. Thank you, Sue.
And before we go, Clementine Bordeaux says, "Happy birthday, Uncle John."
Yeah, yeah. She's working on her PhD actually to
Oh,
express
dang.
these things about Lakota art and indigenous art. So we have some evolving scholars here too. Thank you.
So if she needs to
Wonderful.
publish her homework, First American Art, might be a good place to publish.
Oh, this has been very exciting. Thank you.
We're honored to share your birthday.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, I have to give a lot of credit to these two ladies that actually bring this out, because I don't know of any place that's actually been able to talk about personal adornment in this, at this, you know, in this vein, as far as what it really means to Native people, because it's something that's not really commercially available. You know, the like I said, the gift shops and tourist shops haven't been flooded with it because it's
You
so.
have to go to dances. Like I have my Adam Caesar earrings here.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I should show
Yeah.
myself. But yeah, the only time I see him is, or the only time I can get him is from powwows.
Exactly. Yeah. Well,
Well, cool. Well,
Great.
thank you so much. This was a wonderful gathering, and you can see the video on the Co-Center website, and we'll be back again for a collection spotlight. Everyone take care and stay safe out there.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
enjoy the rest of your
Thank you,
birthday.
John.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for the talk.
Mhm.
it was fun. Thank
Hope you get some good cake.
Yeah, cake. Now we all need cake.
Evacuate sin.